Annual reexaminations. As the name suggests, an annual reexamination or recertification is conducted annually. What is a staggered reexamination or recertification? Well, this is an annual reexamination that is done to align the tenant's reexamination schedule with the annual reexamination or recertification schedule of the building. What is the schedule of the building, or how do we determine the schedule of the building? Good question. This is based on many factors. It can be based on the number of units listed in the HAP contract, how many bedroom sizes are listed under the HAP contract, how many floors the building has, or how many programs the building has. For example, the building can have contracts for both PBV and BASH clients. To get specifics on how we determine the building schedule, please reach out to your advisor and they will be happy to provide you with a breakdown of the annual reexamination schedule for your building. When an annual reexamination packet is received by the participant, who must complete it? All family members must be listed in the application, but all adults age 18 and over at the effective date of the annual reexamination must complete, sign, date, and provide all applicable documents or proof. What is the annual review process? There are up to 3 notices that are mailed out to clients during the annual reexamination process. The first letter is the Reex mail notice. This notice is mailed out along with the blank packet. This notice provides the client with 30 calendar days from the print date to submit the completed packet and all applicable documents or proof. If by that due date the packet is not submitted, or it is incomplete, or documents are missing, the advisor will send out the second and final notice, or what is known as a Lot 26. The advisor will list in detail what is pending, missing, or incomplete. This notice will give the tenant 14 calendar days from the print date to submit the missing or pending documents or forms. If by that due date the packet is still incomplete or pending, the advisor will mail out the notice of intent to terminate, or what is known as a HAP 81. Yes, we understand that this is a scary worded notice, but it must be sent out in order to follow the HACLA policies and processes. This notice will give the client a final 30 calendar days to provide or submit the missing, incomplete, or pending documents or forms to their advisor so that their annual reexamination can be processed. What forms are required? The packet must be completed, signed, and dated by all adults ages 18 and over in the household. If you are missing additional forms, please reach out to your advisor and they will be happy to mail or email you the additional forms needed. Please note that the annual reexamination packet contains a form labeled How to Properly Complete Your Annual Recertification Forms. That will be shown in the next 2 slides. Please read that form carefully as it provides you with important information on how to complete the packet and what to submit based on what income, assets, and deductions apply to you and your family. This is the 3rd form in the packet. Important things to keep in mind. All documents or proof submitted must be dated within 30 days of the submission date. Please ensure that you submit all pages of all documents. Do not redact or exclude any information or pages. This especially applies to bank statements that might have pages labeled "This page left blank intentionally." Proof of identification. Please ensure that all California IDs or driver licenses for all adults age 18 and plus must list the subsidized address. If it does not, they must provide proof of change of address from the DMV. Completed annual reexamination packets or documents that are pending can be submitted via mail, via the drop box located in front of 2600 Wilshire Boulevard, or in person at our lobby when open. Ensure that your packet and or envelope lists your full name and your entity identification number which can be found at the top right of any notice that's been sent to you. Biannual HQS, or Housing Quality Standards, or better known as inspections. Inspections will be conducted biannually for at least 20% of the contracted units. This screen shows a copy of the form that is located in the annual review packet. This form is labeled How to Properly Complete Your Annual Recertification Forms. As you could tell, it asks you to please read this carefully. Be sure to sign and date all the forms that are listed in the packet, not just the application itself. There are many supplemental forms that are needed to be completed and signed and dated by the head of household. On the second half of this slide, you'll be able to see the list of the items that you have to provide if it applies to you and or your family. This is a continuation of the last slide and the form itself, how to properly complete your annual certification forms. This lists additional income sources and what type of documentation must be submitted to the Housing Authority in order to complete your annual review packet. If you have any questions on any of these items, or there is a specific source of income that is not listed here, please reach out to your advisor via email, and they'll be happy to review your case and give you specifics on what documentation can be submitted during your annual review process in order for us to be able to complete it timely. Interim reexamination. An interim reexamination is conducted at the request of the participant or participant family member from the household to the advisor when the family reports a change in circumstances. It is the tenant's responsibility to report any change to their advisor within 30 calendar days. An interim reexamination is a reexamination that is conducted between annual reexams. What type of changes will require an interim? Changes in family circumstances such as an increase or decrease of income, changes in assets such as opening or closures of bank accounts, life insurance policies or retirement accounts, or changes in the household composition such as an addition or removal request of family member or members. Having said that, the process to report such changes is the following. Notification to the advisor via call, email, or via mail within 30 calendar days. Head of household must complete the notice of application for interim rent adjustment form, or what is known as the RE14. Participant must provide proof or verification of the change or changes reported. A certified statement, or what is known as the RE46, must be completed by each family member over the age of 18 stating their current income and assets. In the instances of change of income, if the interim is processed to lower the tenant's portion due to a decrease of the household income, as soon as the household income increases or changes again, the participant must report these increases to their advisor. They must provide proof, and we will process a special reexamination in order to raise the tenant's portion, as well as giving them a minimum of 30 days notice prior to that increase. In the instances of changes in household composition, adding or removal of a household member requires the entire annual review packet to be filled out. Newborns can be added without property management approval, but HACLA must receive a copy of the birth announcement or birth certificate and a copy of the Social Security card. To add adults to the household, we must get written approval from the property management to add said person. Once received, HACLA will send out the criminal background forms to that adult that need to be completed for clearance. For removal of adult household members, we must get a written request to be removed from that adult, proof of their new address, and the head of household must also request to remove said adult. If that adult has minors with them that are also going to be removed from the contract, they must state each minor's name in order for them to be removed. If a minor is requested to be removed alone, then court documentation is required. Note: new family members cannot move in until it is approved by HACLA. Interims will not be processed until all required documentation is submitted to the advisor. Interims can be denied if documentation is not submitted timely. Failure to report changes or provide documentation can result in a notice of intent to terminate, as well as failure to report an increase of income in the family can result in a retro charge to the client or the participant. Changes will be made effective the first of the month following when the proof was submitted, unless the change results in an increase in the tenant rent portion, which requires a minimum of a 30-day notice to the client. Our project-based program does have a minimum rent amount of $50 minus utility. Rent increases. Ownership or the property management team must submit the rent increase request 60 to 90 days prior to the anniversary month of the PBV HAP contract. For example, if the HAP contract was finalized with an effective date of July 13, 2010, that means that the anniversary month is July of each year. The proposed date of that rent increase must be July 1st of each year, so the request must be submitted between April 1st and May 1st of each year. Late submissions will result in a denial of your request. Submissions can be submitted via the owner's portal, via fax, or via mail. There is a request for rent increase form, or what is known as the HAP 185, that can be requested from the advisor if needed. Preferred submission method is through the owner's portal, as you will receive confirmation and the submission will be archived in the system. We do ask that the ownership or the property management team only submit one request per bedroom size or per program. For example, if your property has both PBV and BASH units in the building that each have its own HAP contract, please submit one request per bedroom size for each program.
This section will cover the process of converting a project-based voucher to a tenant-based housing choice voucher. After the initial year on the PBV program, tenants may request a voucher to move. Voucher issuance, however, is subject to eligibility. In order to be eligible, a tenant must have fulfilled the initial one-year residency requirement and should be in compliance with both PBV program requirements and their current lease with property management. The process begins with the tenant submitting a written request for a voucher to the advisor. The request is then forwarded to the PBV recontracting unit, who is responsible for verifying good standing. Once verified, the client is placed on a waiting list to receive the eligibility application. When the application is complete and all verifications are gathered, the client should return all documents to assigned staff for voucher processing. The average turnaround for this process is 60 to 120 days and can vary depending on volume of requests. The next sections will provide an overview of the types of vacates and submission of vacancy loss claims. When a tenant vacates a unit, HACLA pays HAP through the end of the vacate month. Some examples of vacate types are voluntary withdrawals, evictions, mutual and stipulation agreements to avoid eviction, unit abandonment, non-compliance with program regulations, deaths, and conversions to tenant-based vouchers. In order for HACLA to process the vacate, the owner should complete and forward a move-out notice along with supporting documentation to the advisor within 10 business days. Examples of supporting documentation include a copy of the tenant's 30-day notice, the abandonment notice, unlawful detainers, writs of execution, and a copy of the sheriff's lockout notice or mutual agreements. Timely notification of action allows the housing authority to issue our appropriate notices and process vacates in a timely manner. Vacancy loss payments are designed to reimburse owners for rent loss due to unexpected vacancies. In addition to the HAP paid through the end of the vacate month, HACLA may also pay 80% of the contract rent minus any security deposit funds collected from the tenant. To be eligible for this amount, the vacancy must be unexpected, such as a death or abandoned unit. The owner must promptly notify the advisor of the vacancy within 48 hours and provide copies of supporting documentation, and the owner must certify that all reasonable action has been taken to fill the vacancy. For a claim to be valid, an owner must first attempt to collect the funds from the tenant. California law requires that a landlord must, within 3 weeks of vacate, either refund the tenant's security deposit or provide the tenant with an itemized list of charges for which the funds were used. Please note that claims will not be accepted by the housing authority unless a copy of this statement is attached. If the owner is unable to collect the funds from the tenant, the owner may submit a vacancy loss claim form to the advisor for review. The advisor will calculate the total loss and forward the calculations to the assistant manager for approval. If approved, the funds will be direct deposited into the owner's account on file. The housing authority is committed to making reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities. An individual with a physical or mental disability may request a change, exception, or adjustment to a HACLA rule or policy as a reasonable accommodation in order to obtain equal access to HACLA's programs. Tenants may request accommodations either verbally or in writing. Upon receipt of the request, the advisor will follow up with the necessary forms to certify and verify the nexus or the connection between the disability and the accommodation requested. Once the completed forms are received, they will be forwarded to the department manager for consideration. The PBV program at HACLA offers unit transfers within buildings and between buildings within the same owner's portfolio. These transfers are designed to fulfill reasonable accommodation requests, VAWA requests, or resolve compliance issues with ADA units. If a tenant is in need of a unit transfer, please reach out to the advisor to obtain the necessary documents. All requests for unit transfers are subject to approval by the department manager. Occupancy standards are the rules set up by the Department of Housing and Urban Development regarding the number of people that may occupy a unit at any given time. These federal standards are based on the number of bedrooms at a property. HACLA determines occupancy compliance at each annual reexamination. If clients are determined to be overhoused or underhoused at an annual reexamination, they have 90 days from the effective date of that reexamination to either transfer to a unit of appropriate size or request a tenant-based voucher to move. Failure to comply may result in termination from the program. To clarify, overhoused families are those who live in units that are too large for their family composition. For example, one person in a 2-bedroom unit would be considered overhoused. Underhoused families are those who live in units too small for their family composition, like a 5-person household in a 1-bedroom unit. Please note that the option for a voucher to move is contingent upon the eligibility requirements set forth in the Family Right to Move section.